Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the EEARSS podcast produced by Terrier TV here at Titusville High School. I am Frank. That is Bill. That is Cindy. What's happening, guys? How goes it?
Good. It's been a good day.
Did I catch you off guard, Bill?
He looks stunned.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Oh, okay. I forgot the clock for the first time in a long time.
You did, yeah, and it has been a very, very long time. Seasons ago.
Wow, it's crazy to think about that. Is it weird that we're coming to the end of season 4? I was looking at the total number of episodes we've done, and which maybe next week or the week after I'll have to come and we'll do some episode trivia. But we're like 140 episodes into doing this thing. It doesn't feel like
Wow.
4 years, does it?
No.
You're going to do episode trivia?
Yeah, remember we did some a long time ago.
Yeah,
I know not to
I
use
remember.
names. I will not use names. We'll do about
Thank
we'll
you.
go things.
There you go.
We'll mention people's names and ask what they do. How about
Right.
And I will die. I will
Yeah.
I will
Oh, yeah.
jump off the bridge.
Yep.
Well,
No,
I
you
can
can't
remember
do that.
facts about things that people come and talk
Right.
about. Their names, no.
oh, that's what I'm saying. I'll mention their names and maybe what they do, and then something specific about it. Well, I'll help you with. I will not say what's that person's name.
I don't know.
You're
What
not-
color was their shirt?
You're not setting her mind at ease.
No,
Yeah, I know.
no. Every time Frank's like, "Oh yeah, so and so," No, tell me what they. Why are you looking at me like that?
So this is a different shirt than I've ever seen you wear before. So I'm trying to understand. I see the state of Florida.
It was
I see
from
10
our event
years, 15
today.
Your event? You
Um,
ran?
I did not run.
Okay. What kind of event? Tell me about the event.
So, for those that don't know, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so it's a very important month for us at the center. We have a lot of awareness events that we do, but one that we get to be a part of every year. It's not personally our event. There is a very wonderful woman named Lauren Book. She was a Florida senator, but outside of that, she has always been an activist for rights for child survivors of abuse. So she started a nonprofit many years ago called Lauren's Kids, and their mission is to raise awareness and for child survivors. So they do a lot of
Wow.
educational programs to teach kids what are healthy boundaries and what are things that if an adult is doing this to you, it's not okay. And you can tell somebody that you do trust. But one thing she does every year is she walks across the state of Florida to raise awareness. And she always does a stint through Brevard. So we got to walk 5 miles with her today,
I had no
which
idea.
is more than I've walked in
Yep.
probably
wow.
6 months
5 miles is a hike.
combined.
Yeah, 5 miles is a hike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. That's very neat.
Yes.
That's it. It's sad that somebody has to do something like that, but it's great that somebody is.
She is a survivor herself. So she made it her mission when she finally did find the courage to tell people she trusted
Mhm.
to make sure that she did everything she could to help future children not go through what she did.
Incredible.
Yeah, she's a very lovely lady.
Cool.
Wow.
I haven't been doing anything that cool.
Yeah, I say I can't. Yeah, alligators don't match up to that. All right. Well, are you guys ready to jump into chatting with our guest today? Because I'm pretty excited about this.
Yes, let's meet the guest.
All right. So today on the podcast, we are joined by Trevor Zachariah from. Should I just say Dr. Zachariah?
Doctor.
Anybody ever say
Trevor.
Dr. Zach?
Trevor is fine.
Trevor? Okay.
Trevor is totally fine.
we are joined by Trevor from the Brevard Zoo.
Yes.
How's it going, buddy? Thank you for being here.
I'm great, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah, awesome, man. I have so many questions. We had
Okay.
Rachel on, which that episode will come on before this episode.
For those of you who do not know, Rachel is also a veterinarian at the
Yeah.
Brevard Zoo.
Yes,
Yes.
my partner in crime there.
Indeed,
Mm-hmm.
there was I had my mind melted by so many parts of that conversation. One being the fact that it seems like most veterinarians seem to have a calling since they were a kid that kind of leads them to where they go.
Yeah.
Do you have a similar story?
Oh yeah. Same thing.
Please tell us about that.
Same thing. So as a kid, I liked animals a lot. Always was out in the backyard, turning over rocks, doing the whole bit, And then we had a really cool vet in my small town that we took our animals to, and he was just, a really cool guy. Was always super friendly, really good with, our cats and dogs, and he just was really impressive. And so as I grew up, I just, I really liked animals, and I knew I wanted to do something with animals, but I also knew that I wanted to do something like be really good at something. And so veterinary medicine just seemed kind of like the combination of those things, given those influences. And that's kind of all I ever wanted to do.
Did you ever get a
Isn't it-
chance to tell that guy that he influenced you that way?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
isn't it a hard field to get into? I mean, isn't it very competitive?
It is very competitive. So right now, I think, these are rough numbers, but there's around 400 medical schools in the United States, North America maybe, and there's only about 34 veterinary schools.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
Whoa.
and most veterinary schools take around 100 or so students in each class. So it's not a whole
Those
lot.
are not good odds.
They're not great numbers. So when I got into vet school, I think they told us that the ratio was like 14 applicants for every space available,
Wow.
every seat available.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you had some, I guess, impressive grades.
I did okay.
Okay.
I mean, I did okay. I wasn't like the top performer or anything like
Gotcha.
that, but I did pretty well.
I mean, somebody looking to apply for something like that, what do you think set you apart whenever you were applying to school? That, with that many people applying for that many spots, was there something you did to set yourself apart?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I did all the things that were required to apply and all that, and I went through the interview process that they do for the people that meet certain qualifications that they'll bring in, and then you at the time you had to go through an interview and write an essay and do these things for the veterinary school to try and weed out who got admitted. And I think I did pretty well with those parts of it. The interview and things. I think
That's
I think
very
that
that's
helped.
very intriguing.
I think
Yeah, to think about that, I mean, there's obviously you approached it in a way that set yourself apart to put you there, but it's pretty dang neat. I think about, you ever watch Game of Thrones? Either one of you guys ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Yeah.
You ever see Game of Thrones?
I saw the first few seasons.
Okay, remember they had the guys that, like the medical guys that had the chains that carried little things with them all the
yeah,
time?
yeah.
The maesters.
Yeah, the maesters.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, for some reason in my mind, I think of veterinarians like maesters. Like you're at a zoo, and they bring in an animal, and you're like, okay, here you go. I got the little guy on my chain now that I've worked with that animal. And next thing you know, they throw some other animal at you, and they
I
throw a
was
bunch of other
trying to
animals at
figure
you.
out where
And
he
you're
was going
consistently
with
putting
it.
all these rings on. Next
Like
thing you
a
know,
charm bracelet.
yeah, you're
you
like
just-
you're checking
adding
around
to
everywhere
it.
with all these charms
Those
hanging all over.
Pandora bracelets.
How often is it like that where you're, because you're at the Brevard Zoo now, which you guys have so many incredible animals, and then I hear stuff about like now you guys are working with bears,
Mhm.
which I know you guys already had bears there, but it's just like one more ring to add on to the Meister's robe. You know what I mean? I'm like, holy moly, how do you keep it all
Yeah.
straight?
Well, that's the trick of it is, all the animals, or at least all the vertebrates, are pretty similar when you come to the basics of it, like physiology and anatomy. But then as you get into each individual group or species, everything's got something interesting or different about it that sets it apart. And so keeping track of all those differences is where the trick of it comes. So, whether it's anatomy, physiology, behavior, whatever it is, every species is unique in some way, and so having to sort that out, that's kind of the part where it gets in the weeds.
Yeah, not to mention. Oh, sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to know, is there a particular species of animal or whatever that is more cooperative
Ooh.
when you go to bring them in
None.
than others?
That's a great question.
Probably not the otters.
No,
Those things
not
are
the otters.
terrifying.
No,
Oh my
the
gosh.
otters are cool, but they are not. So
Not cooperative?
not cooperative. So most of our animals that we care for are wild.
Right.
So even though they are under our care, they're still wild animals.
Sure.
And so they react appropriately, most of them, as wild animals do, to us trying to do anything with them. And so almost all of our procedures are under anesthesia. And
Okay.
that's for their safety and our safety, and to make things go much smoother and facilitate things. So we do a lot of anesthesia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I always wonder, when you're doing anesthesia on an animal, I imagine with wildlife, I know a little bit about this. As you're working on something, like you bring something in to have a normal surgery and you go, okay, even though we've done imaging on you, you're set up a little bit different than we expected you to be, and you kind of have to maybe not necessarily wing it, but change the plan a little bit in the middle?
Mm-hmm,
Is that a common thing?
Oh, you have to be prepared for adversity. You have to, things can happen. You know, anesthesia carries risks of complications, so you have to be prepared to deal with that at any given time. And so some things are easier to anesthetize and can be smoother than others, and some things are much harder. But there's always risk whenever we do a procedure, and it's just something you have to prepare for.
I would imagine the smaller the animal, the more difficult it is.
Or the larger.
Or the larger. Okay, yeah.
So the two ends of the spectrum make things difficult for different reasons. Yeah, but size plays a big factor for sure. So, we deal with everything from the Perdido Key beach mice, which are like 12 grams, or our Florida grasshopper sparrows, which are, about the same size, all the way up to rhinos who weigh over 2 tons, and giraffe who are like a ton and 18 feet tall. And both of those scenarios present lots of challenges.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So, yeah.
When the zoo's thinking about bringing in an animal, do they tell you ahead of time, like, hey, we're thinking about bringing in this critter, and does it give you like a little bit of time for like you and Rachel to go start hitting the books and going, okay, this is how these things work and what to look for? Does that happen?
Yeah. So we have a collection plan, which basically is just this is what we want to do with the animals under our care. Like what species do we want? What's appropriate? Obviously we're not going to have polar bears outside in Florida because you can't do that.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
So you have to be appropriate to what your facilities are and what you can do. And we do have the benefit of being in Florida where most of our animals can be outside all the time, which you cannot say for, zoos further north or aquarius further north where there's a lot of indoor time during the colder months. We have that advantage, but then it means certain species can't be here. But there is a plan to make it cohesive and make it make sense so that you don't just have random species just for fun. Like we have themes and things like that throughout the zoo that guide what we do. And then we get the animals that come and go. And so right now the way it's set up is animals that are leaving our zoo to go to another one. I handle all the outgoing transactions where animals are moving out to other places. And then she handles anything that's coming into us from other zoos. So we kind of split it up like that. So yeah, so we prepare, we know what's coming and going. And there are diagnostic requirements before animals can move between states or sometimes international. And then, there are transport requirements and different things that you have to account for. And so those are not last minute things. We prepare all of that stuff very thoroughly.
So we were talking with some people from St. Augustine,
mm-hmm.
and they were talking about the genetics and
yes.
and how are you guys part of that like library?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So to keep genetic diversity, you kind of swap out.
Yeah. So a lot of the zoos in North America and sometimes other countries in Europe and South America and things participate in what are called, well, they're changing the name of it, but it's called a species survival plan. For a long time, that was the name of them. And so each species would have this, and then you have different experts in the field that are associated with it from the animal side and the veterinary side and the genetic side, and people who look at all the animals under human care in these facilities that are part of this. And then they decide, like, how do we maximize the genetic population so that we don't run into, and that's not an easy thing to do. In certain species, it's easier than others, but it's not easy to make sure you're maximizing the genetics so that you don't run into inbreeding or bottlenecks where you get down to too few animals. And so they plan that all out, and then they make recommendations on an annual or so basis. This animal should breed with this one should go here, this one should go there, and then the zoos kind of sort that out to fill that plan.
Okay. So how often does something like that happen with the Brevard Zoo?
All the time.
All the time.
Wow.
It's almost constant that animals are coming and going. It's not that you'll notice that if you go to the zoo, but there's always animals moving in and out. Yeah.
That's
pretty frequent.
It's so many things to keep track of.
Yes.
I know.
Oh, yes.
I know. Your job down there has a lot of people that work with you and work
Mm-hmm.
around you guys. You're a pretty incredible team. That seems like you'd need like 100 people. Like you need a platoon of people just to take care of doing one part of these things.
The matchmaking.
Yeah, and then you guys are doing all these things at the same time. And we've had Keith on, we've had Zach and some other people from the zoo talking about all the conservation work that the Brevard Zoo does.
Yeah.
Truly across the entire state. I'd say fair to say maybe the southeast. There's not a whole lot going on in Central Florida or the Space Coast that you guys are not somehow involved with if it's a conservation-based program. It gives you such a unique ability to be involved with so many things. But God bless you, buddy. I don't know how you keep it all balanced.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
It's a lot. There's few people anytime recently that have really taught me anything hands-on with field work and wildlife, and you were one of those. You broke some things down to me. Tell us a little bit about your field work experience and the things you've done out in the field that help you out in the lab, and kind of how that whole situation comes together.
I've done a few different things in the field. So during my residency, I did some time in the Bahamas working with Cyclura iguanas, the rock iguanas down there, which was really cool. There are a lot of different species within the Caribbean that are in that Cyclura genus, and they are some of the largest endemic species on those islands. And they are also some of the most endangered reptiles in the world as well. So they're pretty cool. And then I've done work with dolphins over in Sarasota. They have a really long-running dolphin program over in Sarasota Bay. And I think it's the longest marine mammal program in the world, potentially. Like, they've been monitoring that population for almost 50 years, I think it is.
That's incredible. I did not know that. Yeah.
Moat Marine Laboratory. The person who heads it up would be someone you might want to talk to, because he's been running it, and he is really cool.
Okay.
And it's an awesome program over
You'll have
there.
to hook me up with some information on that guy. Yeah, for sure.
And then just various field works here and there. Been out with you catching gators.
Yeah.
So that was fun. I don't get to go out in the field all that much. But when we do, it's pretty cool.
No doubt about it. In your opinion, what is the most interesting project you guys are part of right now? I know you guys have things going on with bears. We were just talking about that a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Maybe tell us a little bit about that and some other interesting projects you guys are working on at the zoo that are coming through the lab there with you guys.
If there are animals that the zoo deals with, we are usually involved as the veterinary staff. So there's a lot of different things, especially behind the scenes, that people don't always necessarily see as guests. So you can see the bears that are our permanent residents at the zoo if you go as a guest, but we, over the last few years, have also started really working closely with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the work they do with our native Florida bears. And so we have started helping them with their rehabilitation of bears in the state here. So that's one way we're helping. And
just one more thing on the plate.
Now,
one more thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you do that, is the goal to reintroduce them into the wild?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the goal is to rehabilitate them, which means to get them back to the wild.
Okay.
Keep them wild bears and get them back out in the wild. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. We also work with, like I mentioned earlier, the Florida grasshopper sparrow,
Which is a very interesting project.
which is really cool. And they are potentially the most endangered bird in North America. At one time, they were down to just a few, like a dozen or so, couple dozen pairs in the wild. They live on the prairie here in Florida, and only in Florida, in Central Florida area. And they're not very obvious birds. They're just little brown sparrow birds that you wouldn't think much of them, but they're really cool. They sound like grasshoppers when they call, and just really endangered and an important part of the Florida, endemic species. So we're helping with that. And we've got the Perdido Key beach mice, like I mentioned earlier. They're only found on Perdido Key up in the Panhandle.
What's the difference morphologically between those and ours? I know we have beach mice here on the Space Coast.
Yeah, they're different
pretty similar?
subspecies. So there's
Okay.
a variety of subspecies of beach mice. And this particular one lives only on that one barrier island up in the Panhandle. And
Your
so
mental index of animals must just be insane.
There's a lot. So we are involved with that. Over the past few years, we've also been getting involved in manatee rescue. And so we'll have a designated group of staff members who will go out and help with manatee rescues as well. So we do that. The veterinary staff is not as involved in that part, but we do have zoo staff that do that.
And not to mention all the sea turtle work you guys are doing, which
then
has just been
there
a
are sea
consistently
turtles,
ongoing
yes.
thing.
And that's been about a decade because we opened that in April of 2014. So we're at 11 years now. And we do sea turtle rehabilitation, which is, any and all turtles that are injured or sick or for any reason and need help, they bring them to us. And we try and get them healthy and back out to the wild.
It just seems like a never-ending pile of things.
And it grows
which is
all the
awesome.
time.
I mean, I'm
It
sure
grows
that's
all the
awesome.
time.
Well, speaking of growing all the time, you guys are in the process of an aquarium.
Yes, absolutely.
So are you involved in any of that?
It's gotta
The
be
planning
exciting.
Of that?
It's gotta be exciting.
It's a very exciting project. It's one of the biggest things the zoo has ever done. It is the biggest thing the zoo's ever done, besides opening the zoo. And it's a huge project. It's going to be up at Cape Canaveral on the Banana River side, and it's going to be, I forget how many acres, but it's going to be a mostly outdoor experience, very true to our brand as the zoo and being outdoors in nature in Florida. And it's going to feature native species. So we're going to tell the story of like the St. John's all the way to the ocean, like native species, and promote Florida. And we're going to have, sea turtle rehab there as well. So we'll have 2 sea turtle rehab facilities. The plan is to have manatee rehabilitation there. So we'll be taking care of manatees there.
Wow.
And various other conservation projects, obviously. Like we'll still stay heavily involved with all the work we do in the Indian River Lagoon and trying to restore that. And that'll be a big piece of what we do there at the aquarium as well. But we'll have a full hospital there. Fish need medicine too.
That's true.
So, they need medical care as well. They need us. And there'll be plenty of them there. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
You'll see lots of animals there too. And so we're going to be heavily involved in the aquarium as well.
Wow. I know that you said that animals are always in and out, so it's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
But on average, how many animals are in your care?
Good question. So
A lot.
Yeah, I'm sure
it
it's
does
insane.
fluctuate. It does fluctuate. But if you add it all up, I mean, we probably have somewhere around 150 species at the zoo.
Wow.
And I would say probably somewhere around 700 to 800 individual animals.
Wow. That is
at any given time.
That is so many.
It seems like it.
Yeah. Wow.
Now,
do you have one that's? I know you love all your babies.
Yeah.
Do you have a species or a particular animal there that's just your most interesting, or either species or personality? Do you have one that you just love?
Well, so I get
I know
that
you
I
do.
get that question all the time, right? So everyone wants to know what's your favorite species, and it's really hard to answer.
Yeah.
And the reason is that they all have pros and cons when you're coming at them from the veterinary side of things. And they all are cool in their own way. Like they all are really cool. So I will tell you though that I particularly like the giraffes. The giraffes are really cool.
Somehow I knew you were going there.
Giraffes
Somehow I
are
knew
really
it.
cool.
Yeah.
They're just very unique. They're very cool animals. They get a bad reputation for being real, like dumb, if you will, but they're not dumb. They just are what they are. They have their own
Carefree.
way of doing things. And so I really like them. The bears are awesome. Bears are really cool. Sea turtles are really cool. From a veterinary perspective, though, like practical, stingrays are really cool.
Really?
And I will tell you why. Is they're unique, so they're a little different than most of the things we deal with. And then also they're made to be ultrasounded. So like when you do a stingray exam and you put an ultrasound probe on them, you can pretty much see anything and everything inside of them. Like
That's awesome.
really easily. And the
I
reason
guess they are flat and thin.
they're flat, they're smooth, and they're wet. And that facilitates an ultrasound like nothing else. So they're really, really cool to work with, just in general. And then practically, there's a lot of cool stuff like with working with stingrays. Yeah.
So you talked about how many individuals there are.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys keep track? Do they all have names?
Most of them do.
Okay.
Most of them do. Not all of them, because obviously, like, there are situations where you have a group of animals and you can't name every single one of them.
Right. Like
but
flamingos, that would be.
No, the flamingos actually all have
They
names.
all have names.
They do
Oh, wow.
all have names.
Okay.
What's a flamingo name? Can you think of one of the flamingos?
You are really
names?
putting him on the
we
spot.
have Ronald.
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 That is
Of course.
that is a great flamingo name.
It works.
We have Ronald.
Yeah. All right.
There's one named Farva. If you get that reference.
Super
They have
troopers.
great names. Like some of the names are really funny. And really out there and different things. And sometimes they're themed. So like every year when we have cockatiel breeding season, we have lots of chicks. They'll pick a theme. So like one year it was teas. So we have like Darjeeling and London Fog and all these different like tea names. One year it was breads. So you have sourdough and then one year it was cheeses. So you have Asiago and you have
That's what we're doing.
Gouda.
That is what we're doing wrong in research. We name every animal we catch, but we need to have a theme for every day we go
Yeah,
out.
sometimes there are themes, yeah.
Yeah, we need. That's what we're missing in research.
But
I love
they all have names. Almost all of them have names, and they all have identification numbers. So in our records, we have numbers for all of them that are unique to them, which helps us because sometimes you'll have animals that come in with this name that you already have for another animal. So like at one time, like when I first started at the zoo, we had like 3 Maggies. Like there was a bat, there was a goat, there was a dog. So like you had 3 Maggies. So it's like if someone talks about Maggie, you gotta keep it straight. But they all have identification numbers, and most of them also have permanent identification, like microchips, like we put in a dog or cat. Most of our animals have those. Or especially with the birds, they'll have leg bands that are usually mostly stay on. So once in a while they'll lose them somehow. But yeah, they all have identification, so we know who's who. But the keepers are really, really good at knowing their animals. Like there are eyes and ears out there in the zoo because there's no way we can possibly like check up on every single animal all the time or with any regularity. So they're really the ones that clue us in if something's going on, and they know them better than we do. So like they'll pick up on the little things that are real subtle that are like, something's weird going on. Not sure this animal's like right now. But they know them, and they can usually tell us who's who way better than I can ever pick them out.
What is one of the strangest situations you've come across at the zoo so far? Like maybe a strange surgery or a strange intubation, or can you think of something that maybe you started into it and went, that is different than what I expected by a long ways somehow?
Interesting. So the funny thing about animals is that they find ways to hurt themselves that you cannot predict.
I can't imagine.
Like they always manage to do something that you're just like, well, we could never have predicted they would do that. Like there's just no way.
Yeah.
So one interesting case that I remember is in the aviaries in our Australasia area, our Lands of Change area. We have one side, it's all the lorikeet flock, and then the other side's all the cockatiel flock. But there's other various species in there. And one of those species is these Victoria crown pigeons, which are these very large pigeons. And they have these big plumes in their head. They're big and blue, and they're really pretty, and they're really cool. And I got a call one day from the keepers, and they were like, I can't remember what its name was, but so-and-so pigeon, I think it broke its beak. And I was like, oh, that's not good, right? So, I was like, well, can you catch it so I can get an exam done? And they were like, yeah. So they caught it up, and they brought it to me, and I started looking at it, and I realized that its beak wasn't broken. It had somehow managed to drive its top beak, the top part of its beak, down through the bottom part.
No.
Where it's just fleshy in between the mandible bones, and it had driven it right through, and it was stuck like that. So it couldn't open it. Couldn't open its mouth. It couldn't get free. Yeah.
How does that happen?
I think it probably got spooked and flew into something and hit it just right somehow. That's the only way I can possibly guess that it did it. And so, we anesthetized it to start trying to fix the situation. And unfortunately, that particular species really likes to not breathe well under anesthesia. And so this bird decided to stop breathing on us. And so we had to put in a breathing tube, endotracheal tube to breathe for it. But its mouth was closed shut because of the situation. So it was a much quicker fix than I'd expected. So we ended up just basically grip and rip and popping it open and getting the tube in so we could keep it breathing.
you can't be delicate.
Yeah, there was no way to go about it. And it worked out. The bird lived, and it's still in the aviary and doing very well, and it healed up fine. But it was the craziest thing because it looked very weird.
I can't imagine.
Very weird, yeah. But it did great. It did great after, once we got it unstuck and we, got it back out there.
I know the zoo is
great.
very unique also because there's a lot of times you have animals at the zoo that aren't necessarily animals that are on exhibit. They're just animals that are making their way through different parts of the zoo. You guys have different snakes and birds that end up in weird places. You ever end up with animals in exhibits that you didn't expect and have to work on them?
We don't get too many in the habitats.
Yeah.
They don't, some of the animals, like some of the birds and squirrels and things, they go through and they'll go in and help themselves to some of our animals' food that we put in there and things like that, but they can get in and out.
Yeah.
So we don't usually have to deal with that too often. But yeah, we have wild animals that come through and sometimes they need help, we need to catch them up and help them. And what we typically do is we triage them and then we take them to the Florida Wildlife Hospital down the road and
Gotcha.
let them finish the rehabilitation if it's needed. We just kind of assess them and do initial treatments if they need it and then hand them off so that they can take care of them further.
All right. Last thing we're going to ask you here. Looking at your name.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this a little bit to start.
Yes.
There's the DVM, which makes sense.
Yes.
Yes. Everybody knows what that means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The DACZM.
Yes.
Break that down for those of us that are maybe not super good at Scrabble and want to understand specifically what that means.
So that is a group of letters that stand for Diplomat of the American College of Zoological Medicine. And so that is something that you can achieve in veterinary medicine. That is a specialty, just like you would have for oncology or internal medicine or surgery or any of those specialties that are very specific parts of medicine. But because in veterinary medicine we have so many different species to deal with, we have different specialties. So there's an avian specialty, there's a reptile specialty, like reptiles and amphibian specialty. But then there's also this zoo medicine specialty. So it's a thing that you can achieve by doing a lot of extra work beyond vet school. Lots of extra work and study. And you do different things to qualify for sitting down for a very long 2-day test where they put you through the ringer. And if you can pass that test, then you become this diplomat of the American College of Zoological Medicine, which means you are a board certified specialist in basically all things non-domestic.
Did you train for that at the Citadel?
At the Citadel.
It's one more ring.
Oh, there you go.
Dear Lord, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am always completely amazed by chatting with people who are experts at their job, but everything you guys do down there takes you so far above and beyond that it's just it's humbling to have the opportunity to chat with you about it. So we really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been great.
Yeah, it's my mind's blown all the time, but it's it seems like today's been an extra bunch. So thank you very much for being here and chat with us, Trevor. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, guys, another podcast in the book.
Yes,
the book,
sir.
The book of podcasts.
The
I
book
will.
of podcasts.
I think maybe I'll make a book of podcasts.
Think
There
you
you go.
should?
Yeah.
I mean, there's an online forum per se website. I don't know. I've lost the book part all around. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Does that count as you digressing?
I was about to, but thank you for doing it for me. I won't even have to say it now, so I'm good.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to the EEARSS podcast produced by Terrier TV here at Titusville High School. You can learn more about the EEARSS podcast by searching EEARSS, going to ears.org, ears.com, alligatorrobb.com. Rob has 2 B's, not just 1 B. It's my last name, not my first name. It's confusing set of situations there. Yeah, go learn more about us and what's going on. Learn more about the Brevard Zoo, who is a huge blessing to us and everything we do with our research. And yeah, we reckon we'll catch you all next week. Bye-bye.